Hi, it's story time with Nonny, and today we're going to read the book The Caboose Who Got Loose. It was written and illustrated by Bill Peet. This book, this exact book right here, was my son's, and when he was a little boy, I used to read it to him almost every night. It was his favorite book. Here we go, The Caboose That Got Loose. You can see we've read it many times. The binder's even broken, but I can't get rid of it. It's a favorite. Do you have a favorite book? When Katie Caboose rambled down the train tracks, the engines were steamers with puffing smokestacks. She was a caboose who disliked being last, with an endless black cloud of smoke rolling past. "It's not only too smoky," the caboose would complain. "There's the jerks and the jolts of this noisy freight train." Do you see her? She doesn't look very happy, does she? The engine up front always wore a big smile as he lumbered along for mile after mile. He was proud of his being so powerful and strong that he could haul a freight train 100 cars long. So on he went, chugging no worry or care, leaving Katie Caboose in dark clouds of despair. Can you see Katie way, way back there? Katie had little hope she would ever get loose or ever be anything but a caboose. "I can wish," sighed poor Katie. "What else can I do? If you wish hard enough, then your wish might come true." Often Katie would wish that she someday could be something quiet and simple, like a lovely elm tree, or a ramshackled barn all along on a hill, where the noisiest thing was a squeaky windmill. It might become lonely, she thought, way out there, but at least there's a view with a lot of fresh air. Aw, do you see the little shack? Whenever she passed through a small country town, Katie wished she could stop and just settle down and be at one of the houses who sat in a row on a tree-shaded street and have no place to go. "It's so restful," thought Katie, "where one can relax," as she hurried and scurried on down the train tracks. Oh, that does look like a nice little street to live on. What she wished most to be, much more than the rest, was a cabin she'd seen on her trips through the West. A little log shack half covered with vines, perched on a slope in a forest of pines. How perfect, thought Katie as she hurried on by it, to live there in the trees where it's peaceful and quiet. But all the caboose could look forward to was a deep rocky canyon the train traveled through. There she is, traveling by her favorite little place, a log cabin in the woods. Oh dear. Huge boulders leaned way over the tracks in towering, top-heavy, gigantic stacks. What is holding them up? Frightened Katie would wonder, as the earth-shaking train went rumbling right under. If one should come loose and fall down upon her, it would squash Katie flat, and fall she'd be a goner. If she didn't get squished, there was more to be dreaded. Up the winding steep grates where the engine was headed. Oh, look at that view. She's way up high. High in the mountains were terrible ledges where the track only ran feet from the edges. There was breathtaking view, but after one look, it was so upsetting that she shivered and shook. If she slipped off the track, then down she would go, to be smashed into bits on the rocks far below. Oh, don't fall, Katie. Then poor Katie received even more of a fright from a smoke-blackened tunnel as dark as the night, and she crept through the tunnel with a horrible thought that far back in the darkness should suddenly be caught by a caboose-eating monster who lurked all about. They would gobble her up before she got out. Oh, yikes, that does look a little scary. Her trips always ended near a city somewhere, way out in a freight yard with smoke clouding the air, where a turmoil of trains made a great noisy rumble on crisscrossing tracks, an impossible jumble. Do you see Katie? The train came to a stop and the cars were unhitched. Then off to a side track the caboose was soon switched, where Katie would sit and take in the fine scenery, with such lovely sights as a load of machinery, coal cars and flat cars, lumber stacked on their backs, squealing carloads of pigs with snouts poking through cracks. They always left Katie in the midst of it all, while the engine received a complete overhaul. Do you see the pigs? Just their little noses, their snouts are sticking out. The huge engine at last had run down from the strain. From the 10,000 miles he had hauled the long train. Back in the roadhouse, men swarmed all about to check over and under him, inside and out, replacing old pistons and bolts that were missing, patching leaks in the broiler that made a loud hissing, cleaning rust from his piping that ran everywhere, checking steam valves and pumps in great need of repair. Wow, look at all of those workers. As Katie sat there one long dreary night, staring up through the smoke at a red signal light, a small house appeared in the sky like a ghost, a shack of the switchman perched high on a post. "I'd like to be you," said the shack very sadly. "A caboose is what I've always wanted to be, for you have the best life from what I can see." Wow, he's stuck there all the time. At least Katie Caboose gets to travel around. Before Katie could think of some way to reply, all at once a long freight train came thundering by. The next thing she knew, she was jerked and then jolted, then hitched to the train with her coupler bolted. As the train left the freight yard, poor Katie looked back to catch a last glimpse of the sad little shack. What a journey she's on, that Katie Caboose. From now on, Katie promised, I shall never complain. I'll be a happy caboose at the end of the train. and put up with the jolts, those train noise and the rest, all the smoke that rolls by, or at least try my best. With her new point of view, she enjoyed the long ride. It was fun on a trip through the broad countryside. That is one long train. And there's Katie. But when the train crept up a steep mountain grade, then poor Katie found she was still as afraid. And once more she began to shiver and shake at the thought of the frightening curve she must take. Her unsteady wheels could cause her to slip, which would suddenly put a quick end to the trip. There's the engine. It was a hot afternoon, so the going was rough. The engine up front was in a puffing big huff. He groaned, "What a day to chug up such a hill on a bare mountainside without one bit of shade." When he came steaming over the very last hump, he lunged with a fury that made the cars jump. All the way back to Katie, who got such a jolt that it snapped off a rusty old coupling bolt. Do you see the bump in the train right where Katie is? Oh no. Oh. Uh-oh. She was free of the train. At last she was loose. And away down the track went Katie Caboose. On down the grade she flew faster and faster, straight for a curve and certain disaster. Uh-oh. Yikes. Oh dear. When Katie hit the curve, she took off like a kite, high over the treetops on her first and last flight. That would quickly have ended poor Katie Caboose if it hadn't been for two towering spruce. Do you know what a spruce is? It's a pine tree. And there she is, stuck right in the middle of them. The caboose became caught in a tight squeeze between the tall trunks of two evergreen trees. At first she could hardly believe her good luck. What a wonderful place it was to be stuck. She thought sure she was dreaming. It couldn't be true. Here she was in the trees with a beautiful view. It's so perfect, sighed Katie, yet I'm really not free. I know sooner or later they'll come looking for me. Oh, she was right. And then, sure enough, up the mountain that night came a train with a crane and a powerful light. "She could have gone a-leaping off here," came a shout. Like a great glaring eye, then the light searched about. It flashed past the trees down the steepy, rocky bluff, and it searched high and low, but not quite high enough. There she is. Oh, we missed a page. Or it would have spotted the missing caboose, but all they could find was a startled bull moose. "Let's call it quits," growled the boss of the crew. "For all that I care, she's in Kalamazoo." That moose looks a little frightened. Here we go. Katie stayed in the treetops, No one ever found her, except for the squirrels and the birds all around her. At last she was free, just as free as the breeze. And how Katy did love it up there in the trees. And indeed, oh indeed, Katy did. That does look like a fun spot to be stuck. Why don't you have a great day and be happy?